All right, this is problem number 4, and I'm also going to do 5 and 6 from the Solving Polynomial Equations review. So if you want to follow along here, I'm going to do problems 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to go a little bit quicker since I'm solving 3 problems. But if you need a little bit more instruction or explanation, please refer to the 2 previous videos, which I spent a little bit more time going through and explaining in detail. So here we go, number 4. We have 2t minus 5, that quantity times t minus 1 is going to equal 2. Now we can't just use the zero product property because it doesn't equal 0. And if we subtract 2 from each side, we don't have a product anymore. So the first thing we need to do, remember, is we're going to need to simplify each side. I'm sorry about the handwriting. It doesn't always look great on here. Second step, set equation equal to 0. And then third, solving it using whatever means necessary, whether it's factoring in the zero product property or the quadratic formula, however you wish to do it there. Here we go. I'm going to multiply this one here. I'm going to end up using the FOIL method. And for those of you who don't know what the FOIL method is, it's just an acronym that stands for first, outer, inner, and last. It is just a way to multiply binomials that is used by some people who are doing algebra. So first terms, 2t and t, I'm going to multiply those. You get 2t times t is 2t squared. 2t times negative 1 is going to give me negative 2t. You see how that's the outer 2 terms out of the 4 of them. Then they want you to multiply the inner 2, which would be negative 5 times t. And then we're going to multiply the last terms. Negative 5 and negative 1 give you a positive 5. Right now that still equals 2, but I need to finish simplifying, so I'm going to have 2t squared. Negative 2t and negative 5t give me negative 7t. I'm going to add 5, and then we've got that now equals 2 still. So we've simplified this side. 2 is already simplified. So now we need to set the equation equal to 0. That'll make sense just to go ahead and subtract 2 from each side. So we're going to end up with 0 equals 2t squared minus 7t. And then 5 minus 2 is going to give us plus 3. Now the next step here, since we've set it equal to 0, is solving it. I'm going to start out here by trying to factor this. And I'll go ahead here and use my generic rectangle, since I know a lot of people do when a is a different number. So I'm going to take it here. I'm going to set up my rectangle. Don't judge. I know it's not very pretty, but I'm just trying to get it done. Let's put our bottom term down here. This is 2t squared. Our last term in the top right. Their product will go up here, so it'll be 6t squared. In the bottom here, we're going to have a negative 7t. Now we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us positive 6 and add to give us negative 7. Well, we know they have to have the same sign, so negative 6t and negative t, or negative 1t, will satisfy both of those. And multiply them, positive 6t squared, add them, negative 7t. So I'm going to put my negative 6t here and my negative t down here. Just have to be careful where you put them for this next step. You could put negative t up here, you would just solve it a little differently. As I look at what do 2t squared and negative 6t have in common, well, the common factor would be 2 t. Then 2t times what gives us 2t squared? That's got to be a t. 2t times negative 3 gives us negative 6t. And then t times negative 1 will give us a negative t. So we factored it, and we should have then the quantity of 2t minus 1 times the quantity of t minus 3. That still equals 0. Now we can use the zero product property, saying this times this equals 0, so either this has to be 0 or this has to be 0. So let's set them both equal to 0 and solve them. 2t minus 1 equals 0. T minus 3 equals 0. Well, that one's easy to solve there. We just add 3 to each side, so we get t equals 3. This one we're going to have to add 1. 2t is equal to 1. Then make sure you divide by 2. Sometimes I see students making the mistake, they divide by 1, but that doesn't get your t by itself. You got to divide by 2. And we get t is equal to 1/2. So right now we're looking at our possible answers as 1/2 and 3. Let's check them now. I'm going to plug in 1/2 first. I'm going to say 2 times 1/2 minus 5. And when we take it, we plug it in over here, 1/2 minus 1 equals 2. Let's see. 2 times 1/2 is 1. 1 minus 5 is going to give us negative 4. So we have negative 4 times 1/2 minus 1 will give us a negative 1/2. So when we do negative times a negative, that's going to give us a positive. And what is 1/2 of 4? That's going to be 2. So we know that that is correct. Let's check 3 now. We've got 2 times 3 minus 5. And then we've got our 3 minus 1. I'm going to say that should equal 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 5 gives us 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. 1 times 2 should equal 2. So we know we're good there. Awesome. Moving on. Number 5. We have a minus 5 times the quantity of a minus 2 equals 28. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and multiply it out there. I'm going to do this one a little bit faster. So you can pause the video, multiply it out, and check to make sure you have it right. But when you multiply, you should end up with a squared minus 7a plus 10 equals 28. Now, if you got that there, that's good. Now we need to set it equal to 0, so we're going to subtract 28. And right now we have a squared minus 7a. 10 minus 28, what's that going to give us? Should give us negative 18 equals 0 for the equation. And now we look to see if we can factor it. You can go ahead and take the time to factor it over here. Use your generic rectangle if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and just factor it. Just for time's sake, I don't want this video to be too long. And this, I'm not focused on the factoring. We should be able to factor. If not, make sure you ask your teacher about that. So I know I'm going to have an A here and an A here. I know I have factors of negative 18. So since this is negative, I know one of them has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. I need two numbers that multiply to give me 18 and have a difference of negative 7. That's going to be negative 9 and positive 2. So when I multiply these together, I get 0. So that means that either a plus 2 has to equal 0 or a minus 9 has to equal 0. Subtract our 2 and get a equals negative 2. and we add our 9 to each side, we should get a equals 9. I will still check them because that's important. So negative 2 minus 5 times negative 2 minus 2. We're saying that should equal positive 28. Negative 2 minus 5 gives us negative 7. Negative 2 minus 2 gives us negative 4. And that does give us positive 28. And if we do 9 real quick, 9 minus 5 times 9 minus 2 should equal 28. 9 minus 5 is 4. 9 minus 2 is 7. And once again, that gives us positive 28. So we know we're right. So if you ended up getting a equals negative 2 and a equals 9, that's a very good job. Let's jump into the last one now. Problem 6. 3m, or 3 times the quantity of m plus 2 equals m times the quantity of m minus 2. Going to start out here, simplifying each side using the distributive property. So we're going to do here and here. So we're going to have 3m plus 6 equals m times m gives us m squared. And m times negative 2 gives us negative 2m. This side is simplified. This side is simplified. Now we need to set it equal to 0. So because I have an m squared over here, I don't want to subtract it and move it over here. I want to move this side over to the right. So I'm going to subtract 3m. I'm also going to do this all in one step just to save time. I'm going to subtract 6 and subtract 6. So now my 0 ends up being on the left side. But I have 0 equals m squared minus 5m minus 6. Now we're going to try to factor this. If you want to, go ahead and pause the video, factor it, and see if you get the same thing that I get here. If you've already factored it, you should be ending up with 2 binomials. This one's going to have an m, this one's going to have an m. And we were looking for factors of 6, of negative 6, that have a sum of negative 5. Well, it's going to be negative 6 and positive 1. Remember, the signs have to be different because this is a negative 6. So we've got m minus 6 could equal 0 because we're looking at that 0 product property. Or m plus 1 could equal 0. We finish solving and we get m equals 6 or m equals negative 1. And just because we've checked all the rest, we should definitely check this one as well. So let's check it. Change colors here for the check. We've got 3 times 6 plus 2 should equal 6 times 6 minus 2. 6 plus 2 is 8, so we have 3 times 8. That gives us 24. 6 minus 2 here is 4, so we have 6 times 4 also gives us 24. 6 works. Let's try negative 1. 3 times negative 1 plus 2 equals negative 1 times negative 1 minus 2. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. So we have 3 times 1, which is 3. Negative 1 times, minus negative 2. It's going to give us negative 3. And when you multiply two negatives, it also gives you a positive. So there you go. Answers are m equals 6 or m equals negative 1. If you have questions over any of these problems, please make sure you take the time to ask your teacher. This is Solving Polynomial Equations Review, problems 4, 5, and 6. If you need to see problems 1, 2, or 3, please refer to the videos before this one. Thanks for watching.